He needs it.
Welcome to the Nilvah Nexus. I'm James at the idolsmasher at gmail.com, the Nilvah Nexus Facebook page, the Nilvah Nexus group here on Google Plus, a weekly for the common man. I'm going to get my friend Ross in here, going to send him an invite, and he doesn't show up anymore. I don't know why. So I can't invite him directly. Well,
he was really pious. He took off for the holidays. I heard a little rumor from a birdie that the hangouts were yid free for a month. A yid free.
Yeah. To her temple.
Just like the fatherland. Just like the fatherland. Yid free.
I went to the sukkah temple.
What happened?
They have a public sukkah.
Odessa went to the sukkah.
Brought us in to hang out into the sukkah.
Nice.
So that was at the public sukkah. Yeah, that was cool. Like I said, we played the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, and we were yid free.
Is there a sukkah that is it public? I mean, that's a really good question to ask. I mean, technically speaking, a sukkah should be, every one of them should be public, no? I mean, isn't that the point of a sukkah? Is that you're supposed to go and look for a sukkah, and not only are you supposed to go and look for a sukkah, but you're supposed to get as many people to come into your sukkah as possible. It's like even the non-Jew is supposed to. I don't know. There's a little thought there.
True.
We had a sukkah hop at shul. We went to like sukkah to sukkah, and had like a snack, and everyone told a story in each one.
Nice.
That's a sukkah hop. That's cool. We were talking right before we went live about Lashon Hara, the evil speech, evil tongue, and some of us to get sucked into that sort of thing, and how we start it with "Bless your hearts." Bless the heart. You know, okay. It's hair splitting time here before we get into the topic and all that good stuff. What I'm asking here is anything to a best den without saying something negative about the other guy. How do we balance? Because we don't want to say something bad about somebody. We avoid it at all costs. However, how do we bring about a problem to the public consciousness that can be brought to the court? You know what I'm saying? Something bad. I mean, don't we have to, in the end, get down to saying it, getting down to brass tacks? Is there a way we can go about that? Is there a way we can do that? What say y'all? So I've been chewing on this for a couple of days now. And when we were talking about it before it started, I wanted to see what y'all thought. Anybody?
Give me the question real quick. I actually stepped out.
How can we okay, you know how we avoid saying something negative about another person, even if it's true, correct?
Fasesh, yes.
How do we ever bring anything to court? How do we ever settle differences? Where's the line?
What does the Torah say about it?
I don't know. I was chewing on it and I wasn't sure.
Well, Maimonides rules that the one thing you shouldn't do is take people to court, to litigation, because it's just literally I'm paraphrasing, obviously. I can't explain it all in a few minutes, but it's literally a waste of time. Litigation is a waste of time. It just simply doesn't work. Settling outside the court would be the best bet. But what's the line, though? I mean, the technical what you actually asked, like, what's the line? That's actually a really good question.
Well, you know, I'm you know, a lot of people say a lot of, you know, it becomes easy to just spread a bunch of stuff about somebody, and I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it's a goy thing, because I've been goy lately. I've been reminded how goy I am. So, but
is that like a thing that people say? You're such a goy.
We wouldn't want to.
You know what? To be honest with you, James, you could be called a lot worse things. I think being called a goy, it's not that bad of a big of a deal. I've been worse. There's people at my temple that called me a effing animal, a piece of caca. I mean, I get called all sorts of different names. People say so much. Some of the most hateful things I ever heard was from the temple. To be called a goy, that would make my day. All right, the worst thing someone called me. You called me a goy.
Anyway, right. Is it because I'm foreign to it that if you're out trashing a rabbi, I would say that's a pretty offensive thing, and I hear it's common. So I'm talking to a fella in a group here, and he's from Jewish and he's Orthodox, and despite our differences, and we're working through a conversation. I had to throw my hands up. It's like, well, if you can't if someone's out there teaching heresy, there's nothing we can do to stop it. The best end. Are you kidding me? You can handle a divorce, but you couldn't handle this? So I'm getting to the point now. So this is what it's all coming down to. We can just fling poo at each other like gorillas, and nothing ever gets solved. And we can tell the unsuspecting public all this stuff we want to guy, and no big deal, because that's just the way it's been done. So I think I need to get a T-shirt and mail it to some folks that says "Exile or Bust." I am just fed up. I am so fed up. I had a great evening that gave me a great distraction and a diversion. I was having a really bad day because this has been on my mind. We need to get Exile or Bust shirts for these people who were just hell bent on spreading nasty stuff about the other guy. I says, why don't you take this guy to court? If he rises up among you, claims himself a prophet, and starts teaching stuff that is a Torah, even if he doesn't claim himself a prophet, the guy, we're not going to stone him today. But there are things we can do. Can't we work this out to where something's made official by the law of the land? You know what I'm saying? Is this what we've come to? That we can just fling poo because the best din won't cover it? Why wouldn't the best din cover it earlier? Which kind of, you preempted the whole thing I was going to talk about tonight when you said the Rambam says it's a waste of your time.
Pretty much. Pretty much what he ruled, yeah. Maimonides pretty much says that, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the laws of the halakha of it all. It's very interesting. I mean, it's a lot of minutia, and it's boring, quite frankly, when it comes to it. But you're right. There's a lot that should be done. I mean, we have a rabbi who comes here, Gabriel, and he's in the Holy Land. He'll tell you, you walk down each corner of every block, up and down Jerusalem, up and down the towns. You'll see posters people put on the walls. This rabbi is of Satan. He's leading the congregation to hell. And in the next block, the rabbi is the worst person in the world. It's even worse in Jerusalem. It's worse over there. This rabbi is the next Yashka. It's kneel him to the effing cross. It can get really hateful, to be honest with you. Gabriel will tell you. Rabbi will tell you. But the strictest sense of the law, though, James, there's something that should be done. In the strictest sense, it can be done because it says in the halakha. Let's say you have like a really niche business. Let's say you have like only you can do something, right? And you have a business and have a shop, right? Let's say you have a little town, a little shop, and some other yid comes along and he builds right across the street from you the same exact sort of niche little specialty, right? Only you can stitch this special shoe or something, whatever. you can litigate that and sue him and say, look, I'm losing Parnassa because of you. You're taking my livelihood, and you can you win automatically and then he has to move his shop. There's a certain distance. I'm telling you, there's like, it gets into real minutia. There's a certain distance each shop has to be. There can't be a Starbucks next to a Starbucks next to a Starbucks. Like here in New York, there's literally Starbucks next to a Starbucks. It's crazy over here, right? And it gets like that. So if we're worried about those little things like that over silliness like that, well, actually, it's not really silly. It's some people's lives. How much more so about damages of a person? I mean, we're talking about livelihood. Like we talk about, you like Rabbi Katz, and when people say nasty things about him, it's literally damaging his livelihood. I mean, it's literally murder of his character. I mean, daily, right? They have articles, blogs, YouTube channels dedicated to this stuff. Why isn't things done?
Yeah, he's a good guy. No one else teaches, and he's cornered the market, I guess.
He cornered the market, yeah.
And it so easily comes out. Confusion, I would think that would be something court can handle. Topic of the week. I've been going by the Kabbalah. I think everyone else is like a week behind, or I'm a week ahead, or whatever. But this Shabbat we read Noah, the Parsha Noah. Bereshit. We can look at the whole thing because this is us. This is mankind. This is our Parsha. It's awesome. Shalom Ross. Welcome.
Thank you. Can't even sneak in the back door.
I'm willing, but we're not going. Everyone's going to know when you walk in, though. No, we could talk about Bereshit, Parsha Bereshit as well. Parsha in and of itself. And we actually this year avoided talking the first chapter. We got beyond that a bit. But Noah is important because these are the wise men of our times. These were the chosen people. These were the first chosen people of God. As flawed as they might have been, later God chose. These were our ancestors. This is story. What happens here? And we call it the Mikvah because the flood was. You handle a dead body. I don't know if any of you ever had to bury a pet. I've had to bury a few. There's something about a dead body. We got stereo going on. The Ross. Okay, so to wash yourself ritually, you still have to wait till sundown, but you have to go through a mikvah. When you, it's the snip and the mikvah. What did Elisha say to Naaman when he came? Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan. Who's known as John the Baptist nowadays. That was a mikvah. Very universal thing, the mikvah. And the world went through a mikvah. I know a lot of people like to see it as destructive. It is destructive. It's a horrific thing to even contemplate. It had to be done. And nobody can gripe because we're all here. You're here, aren't you? Turned out well for you, right? Well, make the best of it, right? I thought I'd let you know, John. I've been sourcing the Gutnick this year. I'm diving into the Gutnick. And I will be reading from. I've had the Stone for a couple of years. Kabod Bible. There's really no such thing as a Kabod Bible. Or Kabod thinking. It's just another modern, really good resource. Haftorah in perspective. I read the Haftorah out of it last week. how it in there for you. You know, there's parentheses when you read a Gutnick edition Bible that puts that orders things out for you. It's neat. So that's what I'll be going on tonight. I know, Karasa, you're talking. That's one of your favorites.
Parsha Noah. What was one of my favorites? Parshat Bereshit.
Or no, we'll go Noah. We'll go Noah.
Yeah.
What's okay of this parsha? What stands out this year when you read it? What's standing out in your mind this year?
In Parshat Noah, I think the biggest thing for me is, well, there's 2 or 3 things that that I know about Noah, but the part of it is the last part about every man chachai, that you shouldn't eat even blood from a live animal, because it relates to having to be very careful about where you actually get your meat from in a modern day sense. We have a lot of problems in the United States with the slaughterhouses. They take meat from the animals while they're stunned, but they're not killed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of rabbis will say that it's okay, but many of the rabbis I know that deal with the Noahide laws will say, if you can, get your meat where it's locally slaughtered and that it's dead before they take the meat.
Hear, hear. I think CAFOs are a disgusting practice. To go local when we get as meat when we can. Yeah,
well, because it's not a rabbinic and it's actually a Torah prohibition, you really should be stringent with it if you can.
Agreed. There are some grocery stores, and like Oklahoma, a lot of their meat stays in. You have to go to a local. So it's because they're so big on the marketplace being local when it comes to agriculture and the like. It's a lot easier to find out where you're getting it. My favorite place to go is the Amish farmers market, to be honest with you. They got the best everything. If you're in the middle of nowhere, if you're out in Kansas, the Amish have good meat. The Kansans have good meat. You can tell it's different. It's a whole different experience than Walmart. I'm with you, Hadassah, all the way. How we treat animals, we don't want to raise them to a level of a human where they're sitting at your dinner table. But if one thing we learned of this parsha is how to care for them. Now, some people say that the full 7 were given to Adam in the beginning. I've heard this said that is that this is one of the, it's not a contention, but it's I've never quite understood that Adam wasn't allowed to kill an animal, but he could partake of a carcass, whereas Noah was literally given every living creature on the earth for food, so long as we properly take care of them. Have y'all ever heard that before? The full 7 were given to Adam. John's nodding his head. Johann's nodding his head.
It's from the Zohar. It's from the Zohar. From the statement, you shall eat from all of the trees of the garden, except for the tree of life, tree of knowledge. And the way they break it down, each word represents one of the different 7.
Okay.
So like tree of life means like I don't know if I get the order right. Might mean think idol worship. You shall take meaning theft. So they break it up. They're able to, on a mystical level. There's different levels of Torah. So on a mystical level, it's given to Adam. Adam instinctually knew it.
What about the parsha stands out on your end, John? What's about or anything? Last parsha, the holidays. We've been gone for a while, so.
Yeah, I know. I've been it's a great month. It was a great month. You know, you had Rosh Hashanah, bang bang, Shabbos, and then you had Yom Kippur, bang, Shabbos, and you had Sukkot, bang bang, Shabbos, and you had Simchat Torah. So the last day of Sukkot, Simchat Torah, Shabbos. So that I literally wasn't here for a month because of it. So, what stands out on this part? I mean, all of it. It's like one of the best parshas. I mean, I think me and you agree. I think Bereshit, Noah, Leilacha, the next parsha. I mean, it just starts. The Torah starts off strong. It's like it's like a strong opening, right? And it ends pretty well too. It's like a good movie, right? I mean, of course, like the topic of this, like I brought this up to you many times. The topic of today's hangout, the mikvah. The world was put in a mikvah bath, a purifying ritual bath, and so people look at it. I guess from a Christian perspective, we're taught. The world is taught Gentiles usually from a Christian perspective. It's a destructive thing. The world was destroyed. But really, in the reality of it, it was like a new creation. It was like birth again, right? Because you had 40 days. You had 40 days of rain. You had a year, right? It was like the flood happened for a year, but then you had 40 days of rain, and then you had 40 days underwater. I don't exactly remember how it's breaking up. Maybe I could be wrong. But 40 days symbolizes also the connection to Moshe, the 40 days that he went to Mount Sinai 3 times. There was 3 sets of 40s, right? You had 40, he went up the first time, breaks the tablets. Went up the second time, got 2 tablets. The third time, he finished the rest of the Torah. So it's the same thing. 40 is a symbol of life. 40 is it takes 40 days for a woman to gestate. When you impregnate a woman, the sperm and the egg takes 40 days to develop into what they call a zygote, right? Is that the word, zygote? Or am I wrong? That's what it's called, a zygote? Basically a fertilized egg. And that's life, right? So life begins not really at just, at like knocking boot stage. Happens a little bit after. And once that egg is fertilized, so that's kind of like what happened. The world was born again a second time. It was put into a mikvah. And so this is the question. This is why we always ask, like, why didn't the Torah start with Avraham? Why did we need Adam? Why didn't we need Noah? God knew Adam was going to mess up, right? God knew Adam was not going to do what he was supposed to do. Not to say that he failed, just in the context of that particular part. Noah, no matter how righteous he was, he's righteous in that generation. He still couldn't save anyone but himself. So why not Avraham? Why couldn't we just start with Avraham, the perfect Jew, right? The perfect Yid. So the sages say is even if Avraham was the first created being, because Kabbalistically speaking, it does say Adam his soul was reincarnated as Avraham, but we'll discuss that later if we want to. And Noah was reincarnated as Moshe. To fulfill fix their mistakes. So Avraham did everything perfectly always. Where Adam, he never did it right the first time, but Avraham did it right the first time always. Noah couldn't save nobody except for himself, whereas Moshe saved everyone. Jews, Gentiles, Gears, men, women, white people, black people, Egyptians, Israelites. He saved everyone. You're going to kill these people, God? Kill me first. He did everything. He saved the Aaron Rav, the mixed multitude, the people idol worshippers. They worship the golden calf. God says, I'm going to wipe them out. I don't want these Gerim anymore. What are you talking about? They're perfect. Save them. He saved an entire nation. So Avraham couldn't be born. Why? Because the world was too coarse. It was like this table here. it's just this big lump of wood, right? You can't really penetrate it spiritually speaking. You can't say a bracha on it in an elevator, right? Whereas a liquor, right? We say a bracha, right? Noah's Parsha. We get to eat meat. Why we get to eat meat? Because we can finally elevate it. We can finally take a piece of we could take a steak, a nice juicy steak. We say a blessing, Baruch Hashem, you created all things. Bam, we elevated. Now we can elevate it. Now that it was put in a mikvah, it can elevate. Spirituality can finally penetrate the world. Finally, I can eat meat and elevate it. I can eat a lemon. I can do mitzvot. I can keep Torah. I can finally do things, right? No matter how good Avraham, no matter how good Adam was, no matter how good Noah was, they couldn't really get to the it was just too harsh. Now it's soft. Now it's
that's what they called Noah. He was the one that would relieve the harshness of the wind. The burden would be lessened by Noah.
Right. What does Noah mean? It means rest. Rest. He finally gave us rest. Right? The ground's no more cursed, right? Adam, his sin brought about you couldn't work the earth anymore, right? You couldn't get anything from it. You couldn't elevate it. That's basically what it means. Noah finally could elevate it. Baruch Hashem. And that's what brought on, that's why Shem, his son Shem, was able to build a yeshiva, set up a school of Torah learning, Bible learning. That's why he could, Aver, the first rabbi, a goy rabbi, go figure. I don't know if that's allowed today, who knows. And you finally have Avraham, you had Yitzhak, right? Avraham, kindness. He built the tents. All four sides always open. Anyone can come. Any ger can come. Say l'chaim, right? We say l'chaim, Baruch Hashem. Yitzhak, he dug wells. What does it mean? He dug wells. It means wells of waters, blessings. He was able to bring blessings in the world. And when the people wanted to fill up the holes, he redug the wells. That's the strength. Yaakov, balance. He finally. I found my cup. You're right. I found my cup. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. And so that you're able to have. It makes sense. Now you can have those type of people. Now you can have Yosef and the 12 tribes.
Baruch Hashem. That's all I got to say.
On the note of why Abraham and not Noah, I'm going to read this point from Rabbi Nachman. I think it's in this one, in the Outpouring of the Soul. But I have the exact page. I shared it a couple of years ago. It says, it is also taught when Noah left the ark and saw the terrible destruction around all the world, he began to weep and cry out, Adon Olam, the master of the world, you should have mercy on your creatures. And then Hashem answered him, foolish shepherd, now why are you complaining? Earlier I told you I have seen that you are the righteous in this generation. I warned you I am about to bring a killer flood upon all earth to destroy all life. I told you that so that you would pray for the world. Now that the world is destroyed, why are you opening your mouth before me with prayers and supplications? So if only it is taught that if only Noah had prayed, he could have saved the entire world from the destruction. And so, as the saying goes, Noah made wine and Abraham made men.
Baruch Hashem, yeah. One of my favorite midrashim is from Parsha Noah, and it says that Satan came to Noah and said, he's planting grapes to make wine. He says, let me help you. Satan says, I'll help you, and it says that he brought ritual sacrifices. Obviously, this isn't literal; it's allegorical. And Satan he slaughtered a lamb, a lion, a monkey, and a pig on the altar on top of the grapes, and the grapes grew fast, it sprung up quickly. And Noah drank the wine, and it says that Satan says, you drink one cup of wine, you say one l'chaim, you're like a lion. Nothing to do with it. It doesn't do anything. One cup l'chaim, whatever. You have two l'chaim, you're like a lion. Okay, come on, Frank. Let's go at it. Come on, I'm gonna take you. Let's go, right? 3 l'chaim. Now you're like a monkey. Now you're making like kind of a baboon now. Now you're just you're bumping into stuff. You're foaming at the mouth like a wild animal. And it says 4 l'chaim. You're like a pig wallowing in your own filth. And so it teaches us. I like that's like one of my favorite midrashim.
That's a good midrash.
So that's moderation.
Yeah, one of the midrash I like from this parsha was in the ark and the power that men were before the flood. Noah had been mauled by a lion, and Shem went to the Garden of Eden with a sword and was able to get the water that feeds the tree of life back and saved his father. This was the first priest. Noah saved the world. Priest. And I think this is what the world needs now more than ever. The priestly, if Noah had only prayed, who prays? Who prays for the world? Who prays for every nation? The priests. There's something about that I think that the world is striving for right now, or the world is starved in, and that is the priestly nature. And law is great, but in this country, we are, in the West anyway, we are lawed out. There's something that's starved, I think, in our souls, and the law is great, and I think that's always page 1. But there's something about the Shemite. There's something about the administration of the goodness and the joyousness of. They were the ones who sang and played instruments and started the dances and that's, I think we need that now. And I was going to bring Shem up in this week's parsha because of just who he's overlooked. He's overlooked. In a lot of folks don't. He's not written. There's not a lot about him that you recognize as Shem. Melchizedek shows up, and that's the priest. That's when he was a priest. But he was pre-flood, so he was born. He was born in a different world. He was a giant of his era. He taught Abraham. That's where Abraham learned God, but he learned his Torah from Shem. He had to circumcise. Who helped him? Because it was Shabbat. Because Shabbat comes with circumcision. There's an afternoon Shabbat prayer last week. When it comes to Shabbat, that there's one reveled, one danced, one it was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob about the what they did on Shabbat, and so it was Shem anyway who helped out Abraham to get circumcised. And this is such a big guy, and this is the Torah that speaks to the world. That's why Rabbi Katz and other people would call the Torah of Shem, because there is a universality to the Torah. People who are good enough to eat from it and take from the tree of life. Shem. That's my Shemness. You gonna come back? Okay.
I'll be back. I gotta take this class really quick and I'll be back. Okay.
Come back.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like
See,
the biggest insult, James. It's like Frank, he comes in here, he stays for a couple of seconds, and he goes, "You know what? I got a better Torah class I got to go to. I'm sorry, guys. And then he blasts it. He drops it on the comments, drops it on the mic. I got somewhere I'd rather be to learn. Okay. I'm messing with you, Frank. Frank knows I'm breaking his level. So he knows I love him.
Frank will be back too.
Brookish.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what he's taught about our universal. Ross, you're speaking. Speak, please, sir.
Who, me?
Oh, I thought you said something. I'm sorry.
Well,
Wishful thinking.
No, I've got something to contribute.
Please.
Okay, well,
You're my man. We're going to get that bigger sukkah.
Do what?
I just said you're my man, and we are going to get that bigger sukkah. I used your line today, but I didn't give your name because I didn't want to embarrass you or anything. But I used we're going to need a bigger sukkah line. Today when I was talking to you. Anyway.
Yeah.
How much got it?
No, some unusual things stuck out this time for me. One was in the Parsha Breshit. It talks about the Nephilim, giants. And I've heard a different teaching on that as to what that actually translates out to. But sticking with what we've learned and been taught about the giants, it occurred, and we've heard that Og clung to the ark and survived the flood. So those are one of the Nephilim that came in after the flood. Another thing that stuck out was that in Parsha Breshit it says there was no man, or rain had not fallen on the land, and everything was in a sprout state, so to speak. It never really developed because there had been no rain. And even at the time of Noah didn't even pray for rain. But that's the point where God said, I'm going to make it rain. It never had done that before. So even in the time of Noah, he still, no man had prayed for rain.
That's not actually true. It says in the Talmud that the first prayer for rain was Adam's prayer for rain. Adam prayed for rain.
Okay. A little confusing.
Because God set the world up where the plants germinated, but it was no sort of atmosphere, sort of water goes up, water comes down, evaporation, clouds. Adam created it, so he brought rain. Adam prayed. That's what I don't know. That's what it says in. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I read where it said a mist rose up from the ground all the way up until the time of Noah. That was the impression I've always had. But a very unique thought came to me, and I'm not going to say that it's right whatsoever, but it was a very unique thought. When Noah was being born, they said of him, "This one shall give us rest." Man had been toiling and digging and planting and very little success in the way of getting food to grow. And the thought that came to me was, this one will give us rest. And it's always said or associated that at the time of Noah, Man was then allowed to begin to eat animals. He just had to drain the blood. So now we don't have to scrape and toil and dig in the land anymore. Now we can eat meat. A little bit of a unique thought, like I said.
I like that. I like that.
All these,
Could you say
all
that? No,
huh?
no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
I'm just saying they've had all these cattle around for all this time. It even said that Abel was a shepherd, and he brought the fattest of the lamb as a sacrifice or an offering. But if you're not eating the meat at that point, then the best you're going to get is goat's milk, goat cheese, a little bit of wool, maybe some hides for making tents or something like that. But if you're not eating the meat because it was prohibited up until the time of Noah, that's where the rest comes in. Now we can get the wool and the meat and the milk and the cheese and the whole bit.
Could we say that Noah was Adam completed? I hear Noah invented the plow, and yet it was Adam who was made a farmer. You know what I'm saying? The perfect harmony of animal and man working together. A reaccomplishment of Eden. God chose Noah. I mean, you had to take, okay, it's entirely possible that God took care of everything. I have a feeling, and I think I've been told before, I can't quote anything at the moment, that Noah took care of those animals. That he that was his job, was to take care.
There's a commentary by the Baal Shem Tov that Parsha Bereshit and Parsha Noah are. You're right. You got like a point. You're right on point there. I like that. It's completed, perfect. It represents what it's going to be like in the Messianic age. Like people ask, like, what are the signs? What can we go by? What it will be like? People want to know, what is it going to be like this 1,000-year reign? And it says that this time, that this way it is will be like. This is like an allegory for the world, because you're right. It's sort of like you got rest. You have you're no longer, humans aren't slave to do, like it says that Adam had like didn't have digits yet. It says Noah had digits. He was tall, walked upright perfectly, and stuff like that. They give all these sort of allusions to a higher light and evolved being, right? So it's kind of like the Mashiach time, right? We don't have to work, Shabbos every day,
Yeah.
And same thing like with the ark. What happened in the ark? Every animal lived together. Every animal provided. Everything was provided. Man took care of it. There was no fighting, except for the midrash where he's mauled by a lion, which is a midrash. So it didn't really exactly happen. So it's like sort of like what it's like to be like in the Messianic age, the lion with the lamb, wolf and the lamb, or however it's written down as, will lie together, harmony, peace, completely surrounded by blessings. Right, the ark wasn't a boat like we think. Like Christians, like they have a little boat. The little animals, giraffe sticks out like the top of the top. It wasn't like that. It was like more like a submarine with the latch opened up with a window, and they went in, right? And the waters completely surrounded it. Hashem's blessings will always be around us. Bracha, mazel, strong. It's sort of like so you're right. You're hitting it right on the nose. I like that. Yeah, you were onto something. You were onto something there, James. He
was the redeemer of Adam, really, when you think about it. He was our redeemer. our first Redeemer.
Right.
Another little curiosity that stuck out.
I do want to say here real quick, not to cut you off, Ross. I always want to cite my sources because that's what we should do here. We should cite our sources. So the Talmud tractate Halin 60b states that God created the universe and Adam was the first to pray for rain.
Awesome. So go, Ross.
Another little curiosity that stuck out in Breshit was that a man named Lamech had two wives, Ada, Zillah. Zillah had a child. His name was Tubal-Cain. And he sharpened tools that cut and iron. And it's curious that what sort of tools would he be sharpening pre-flood?
And where was this from again?
It's in the first Parsha, Breshit.
Yeah, what was his name? Lamech. Lamech invented weapons of war. He was a warlord.
Four, I think.
Was
he Noah's grandfather, or was he? No, he was the grandson of Cain. I forget who Lamech was. Who was Lamech? The grandson of Cain, right?
It goes like this. Cain had a son named Enoch. Enoch,
right?
Begat Irad, who begat Mehujael, who begat Methusael, who begat Lamech.
Brother of Methuselah. Okay.
Well, Methusael. These names all sound similar. Cain's first son was Enoch, and I think it was Seth's first son was Enosh.
Right, one's Enosh and one's Enoch. Right.
Enoch was actually fifth. He had Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, 365 years, then Methuselah, and Lamech.
Lamech and Limach, right? There's one with an A and one with an E, right?
Exactly.
Just like there's Enosh and Enoch, right?
Yeah.
It's a mirrored reflection. One's wicked, one's righteous. One's a Rasha, one's a Sadiq.
Yeah. And that's why you've got Methuselah and Methushael at the same time. So there's this mirror image sort of thing going on.
Huh.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Lamech was actually Cain's great grandson. Okay. And Lamech was the one that was credited with killing Cain with the arrow, if you recall.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You never heard that?
It was 7 generations. And then he screamed, let me live for 7 times 7 generations.
Well, the story is that Lamech was blind, and
not literally blind. He was blind to Emet, truth, Hashem.
Right. One of his sons was out with him while he was hunting, and he shoots an arrow, and the arrow kills Cain. And that's where he cries out, whoever destroys Cain should suffer 7 times over.
Right.
Well, he's saying, I did it by mistake. It was an accident. So if anybody comes after me, then let them be punished 70 times 7. But Lamech also, at that point, when he had heard the news that he actually shot the arrow that killed Cain, the story goes, clapped his hands together and actually killed the son that was with him.
Oh, wow.
But it's just fascinating, the similarity of the names. Jabal was the father of those who dwell in tents and have cattle. Well, who else do we know later on that dwells in tents and has cattle?
A great number of folk I've read.
Right. Abraham was like the first after the flood. And if you notice what it says, Jubal, his brother, was the one who was involved with music. Jubal. Interesting, today we still call a musical event a jubilee.
Yep.
They were as far as I think I read somewhere each of them was known for a different trade. Like
Right.
Enoch was known for being, I think, a shoemaker. And
Which Enoch?
Enoch with a het.
The Enoch that left with God.
The one that became the scribe of God, Metatron, yeah.
Okay.
He was a shoemaker. I think Methuselah was a herbalist or something like that. Herbalist. They were all known for something. One made weapons, one made instruments. They each had like a different. I don't really understand what it represents, though. I think it's supposed to represent something. Go ahead.
He was asking about the kind of material they could cut copper.
That would be interesting. I would like to know that. Yeah.
There's a stone, a special stone, if I'm not mistaken, that lit the ark when it was dark, when it was still before the hatch was made.
Yes, it's actually here in the commentary. Yeah. So in the art scroll, on page 31, it's the stone edition. In the commentary, it says a window. Some say it was a skylight. According to most commentators, it was a window Noah opened after the flood. And some say that it was a precious stone that reflected the light outside to illuminate the interior.
Right. If you watch the Noah movie, he uses that. He makes you the Noah character in the Noah movie. I watched it again recently. I've gone back and watched that and the.
It's decent. It's a decent movie.
It's not so bad. It really isn't so bad.
I like the rock monsters. The rock monsters are my favorite.
When he says "forgive me" and his soul's, I mean, oh man, and they earned their right to go back to Hashem, the angels that came down to help us. They're not fallen. What my Rabbi Dove would say to me, he would say, they're not. These aren't the fallen angels you hear of in the Christian text. They were here to help us. They were here to to help us along with technology and with, they were and they became us. They became earthly. And I couldn't help but think when I'm say that, I couldn't help but think back to that Noah movie, the rock monsters. These were heavenly beings, angels basically, who became earthly, who became mundane, who took on physicality, and it was and when they said "forgive me" and they were freed and they all died defending. Oh man, it was pretty cool, dude. It was all right. It's not so bad. And I know I gave the movie a lot of hell for that when it came out, but looking back,
where did they get the Noah, like towards the end of the movie, Noah wants to kill his daughters and the baby, and he goes completely out of Meshuggah. Where did they get that from though? Is that like from a midrash or just is that they just make that up because of? I mean, I guess when you see the destruction of the world and you kind of think like humans are evil, I guess you kind of figure you should not breed anymore. I guess, but is that like from something? Does anyone know?
I don't know. I got something, but I think Hadassah wants to talk. I got a feeling.
I remember seeing that movie in the theater. I first got into Judaism. I thought it was so cool because they borrowed a lot of Kabbalistic ideas. But did anyone notice like the snake skin he kept putting on like tefillin?
Yeah. They say that it was handed down. There's a midrash that it was handed down. The snake from the serpent was handed down. It was like gave him powers. It like who stole? Someone stole it. I think we read that in the Stone Edition. Someone stole it.
I wondered if that like had a basis somewhere.
It is, yeah. The snake skin, yeah. It's from the midrash. There's a midrash. There's a midrash.
I saw that and I was like, ooh, kind of like the idea of, I don't know if it's true or not, but that the whole Torah was given to Noah. He had to properly give an offering and slaughter an animal. He knew what clean and unclean was. These are characteristics that aren't Noahidic, if you will.
Right.
It's like he knew. It's like there's a special.
Well, it goes like I always say to you, James. Shem and Aber were rabbis. They built the first yeshiva. They were rabbis, and they taught Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob Torah. So the question is this: why are they not Jews themselves? So the answer is kind of like, yeah, you have Derek Jeter, right? He's a great baseball player. He's like the best in the business, right? He has a coach. Is his coach the best in baseball? Not exactly, right? Whoever his coach is, right? But he can teach. That's his shtick. He can teach. He doesn't exactly get into the game, right? Doesn't get his hands dirty, but he can teach it. So that's kind of like the answer.
That makes sense.
The only criticism I have about the movie, it's still the arc that they use. It still kind of looks like the Christian version in some way.
It's a boat, yeah. It's a boat.
Because the actual ark itself, it was a miracle it floated at all. It was not a seaworthy vessel. It was basically a box.
An ark. Like the ark we keep the Torah scrolls in. It looks like the same thing, except for times 1,000, right? It's a much bigger version. It has one window. It has one window, one latch, right? It's kind of like you open the ark. The latch opens.
I mean, basically, a wooden box.
Yeah. Submarine. It's like a big submarine, like a box submarine. Yeah.
Could this stone possibly be what the flood? To maybe cut copper, an element maybe.
Sure.
Getting back to Lamech.
I don't know. The first two parshas talk a lot about. Bereshit talks about the rivers of Cush circle this land, and the land of there has materials that are very good. The gold of Euphrates is wonderful, or however it's put, right? It's the this here is very heavenly, So it talks about this first two parts. Talk about these different stones, different elements, different materials, building blocks. Obviously, those things were used. They passed down. They kept it. They mined it. Like Noah, the movie. It's a great interpretation. These people are mining these elements. It became so desolate. The Middle East, right? Why is the Middle East entirely desert? It's because of all the deforestation, mining. It has nothing there anymore. Obviously, it was They sucked it dry, right? Makes sense.
I think I have an idea on you were asking why was Noah so no mating at the animal.
Why was Noah what?
He was like ready to kill them. He would kill them.
I don't. Yeah, it's a very. That's like one of the faults of the movie. He becomes very erratic. Like he's this pious guy. He's doing everything for the Lord, and then all of a sudden he just wants to.
I was thinking if God said if God said the end of all flesh has come before me, build an ark. And he knew it was the evils of men who did it. Perhaps he didn't know at the time that he was special. He didn't know what his purpose was. He knew he was going to care for the animals. They were innocent. But, maybe he didn't know. Maybe he thought this was the end of mankind because he was already killing the rest of them. He's saving the animals. He certainly could be thinking of us. That's what I thought about that. And that's where I kind of came out with that, is that he didn't think that he was supposed to survive. He thought he was as unworthy as the people that died,
Sure.
all that time. Something I thought of anyway.
And then he sees like another child being born. Their kids have kids now. Wait a minute, that's like another generation. What happens if their kids have kids? Then it's another generation. So I could see that. I can kind of see that. Yeah. It was supposed to end,
Well, I try to see it a little bit, maybe just a tad more realistic. And, the ark landed. Everything's been underwater. I'm not entirely sure what he had around him. Fig trees, banana trees, apple trees. But if there's any fruit-bearing trees that survived the flood, how much of that is he actually going to eat? I'm not too sure that there was just, some broccoli laying around or some cauliflower. Or, I don't know what you really had in the way of vegetation after the flood. But we do know that he planted a vineyard. And that's no quick grow. That's not a little fast crop there. So I'm halfway thinking that this allowance to eat meat, just drain the blood, is really what went a long way towards his survival until crops could be planted and grown. Okay,
what could the animals eat?
I think you're onto something there, Russ.
How could the animals survive? Maybe that's why he brought more clean than unclean. Maybe it was for.
I think if we look at it this way, if the purpose of Judaism is to elevate even Satan, right? We have a good side and a bad side, right? An angel and a devil, right? Whatever, the cartoons, right? So you have an evil inclination and a good inclination. So if our purpose, right, Judaism teaches that you have to elevate even your evil inclination, even your Satan, Hasatan. So maybe at that time, maybe Noah had to rely on animals. Animals being, from a Jewish point of view, animals represent your animal soul, Satan. So you're relying on Satan. You're relying on your evil inclination at the moment. So he's elevating even his evil inclination until he's able to until there's life again, until there's able to do some sort of Torah mitzvot, until you're able to prosper from a completely holy point of view. Maybe?
Well, yeah, but as far as your animals go, donkeys, cows, water buffalo, a lot of those animals eat grass, maybe some leaves off of trees, but they're almost always grass-fed.
Herbivores.
I would surmise. Huh?
Herbivores.
Yeah, they're all herbivores. The you know, you're going to have some trees and some grass and some hay or whatever the heck survived the flood for sure. I'm just saying, as far as fruit goes, readily available fruit and vegetables, I'm not so sure that it was just laying around for him to go through somebody's pea patch and pick up, you know, some green beans for lunch.
Yeah, I guess I would well, I don't know. It's a good question whether it was readily available. It's a good question. It's a good question.
Honey, I'll be right back. I'm going down to Kroger and we'll pick up some soup.
All right, Ross.
Sounds good. What type of soup?
I don't know what kind of soup Noah likes.
Huh?
Let's see. What do you call it?
Matzo ball soup, no?
Do what?
Matzo ball. Chicken noodle. He likes chicken noodle.
Yeah. Or maybe
I'm actually
some.
thinking
Actually, I think the type of soup he likes is Manischewitz. Manischewitz. Comes in a bottle.
Oh.
a little rough.
The wine obsession. I like to think that Noah made a lot better wine than Manischewitz.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't it certainly wasn't a dry wine, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet if we found a bottle of that, it would really be aged to perfection.
Well, I highly doubt it was made with Concord grapes.
Probably not. So we end with the covenant, correct? On the Parsha. It's in the Haftorah. On the covenant we end.
Oh yeah.
We end
Babel, that's right.
Babel, yeah. So we're right back into it. Humans are so wicked and evil, they're destroying the planet, wiped out, new creation, a second chance, and what do? They roll right back to it. Yeah, Babel, Sodom and Gomorrah is coming up.
Oh yeah. Before we even get there, though, I didn't finish the thought. Thank you very much. Let me. Noah's running around.
The soup. I thought the soup was the end of the comment. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah.
I thought that was it. Soup.
The soup got me distracted.
Yeah.
But he's running around and he's looking around, and there's only 70 people on the whole planet. You got Nimrod over here trying to build this tower thing. He's sucking everybody up into it.
That's only if it's literally a worldwide flood. 70 people.
Say what?
That's only if the flood was worldwide. I mean, obviously, there's people in Japan having fun. Ireland.
Okay.
Possibly. I'm not saying definitively. I'm just saying keep it open. I don't want people to come in here and call us zealots. You filthy zealots. They flat Earth, global flooders, zealots. It's a joke, Ross. It's James. Well, James came in here earlier. The first thing he said to me, I was called a zealot. I was called a zealot today.
And it wasn't a bad thing to be called that at the time. That's what it is. I'll take it.
So go ahead, Ross. Finish.
Yeah.
Ross.
In Noah's world, as we're told, there's 70 individuals. Nimrod's over here trying to incorporate every human being on the planet that's known to them, build this tower. Apparently, Noah's not going to have any part of it. And he takes off, plants a vineyard. His three sons are there, of course. Now, at what stage, I'm not entirely sure how but I'm thinking as this vineyard's coming up, Nimrod's doing his thing, and Noah's looking at all this. He's like, wow. The whole earth got destroyed. We were all involved. Everybody was involved in some kind of idolatry. And what are we doing? Subjugating ourselves. Huh? Go ahead.
He lost faith a bit. I could see that.
Yeah.
It's easy to sympathize in his position, I think.
I mean, it's straight up all of Ham's children that are causing all the problems. I mean, Nimrod was a descendant of Ham and Canaan, of course. Egypt is a descendant of Ham. Cush is, and then Nimrod himself is responsible for the building of the cities of Babel, the beginning of his kingdom, and Nineveh. We discussed that. So here you got this Nimrod character out here just building all these cities, and not any of them came of any good. I mean, Babylon was responsible for the first temple destruction. Assyria was also a descendant of, Assyria came from a descendancy of Canaan. Egypt, like we said, took them as slaves, and then they lived in the land of Canaan, and there were the 7 Canaanite nations that had to be destroyed. Ham's the one that's Ham's the one that's causing all the problems. His children.
Maybe Noah knew. He was a prophet.
We hardly ever hear anything about Japheth's children. And if you look at the lineage, Shem, I mean, Japheth, his people settled all of the coastal regions. Ham's descendants basically settled Egypt in the Middle East. And if you look at what it says, the area that Shem settled, you can't find that on a map.
Why not? No one knows.
It says the place that he settled was between 2 points. Let me see if I can find it for you. There we go. It's going to be in Genesis. Yeah, it enumerates the descendants of Shem, beginning in verse 21. It tells you the names of all of his children. And then when it comes down to the end, it tells you their dwelling place extended from Mesha going towards Sephar, the mountain to the east. That's verse 30 if you're looking for it, 10:30.
I was also looking for a map or something. But,
I posted a map. On the map, it seems to indicate that Shem settled what we usually consider where the Garden of Eden was on the Euphrates, like webcam on the Euphrates River. Because it's question marks. If you look at the map I sent, question mark.
That's what I'm saying. You don't have a
You can't find it. He's right. You can't find it. It's not the Shem didn't settle at the land of the earth.
But you can clearly see the islands and the coastlands, and you can see where Egypt is, where Canaan is, where several of the other nations, Babel, Iraq, Syria, clearly defined places.
aren't Europeans basically called Japhethites? White folk, if you will, and all the multicolored versions of us there are. Celts, Nords.
Colloquially, yeah, that's usually what we. That's what what we go by.
Maybe that's why like Eastern European Jews are called Ashkenazim, because one of the descendants of Japheth is Ashkenaz.
Right, white Jews, yeah, correct.
Huh.
And they were known to be Germans or Central Europeans.
Well, if you go back to Genesis chapter 10, and you're reading in verse 3, the names of the sons of Japheth, interestingly, look at one of the names that shows up there.
What do you got for us, Russ?
Genesis chapter 10, verse 3, the sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Rivkah, and Togarmah.
Yep.
What were the three? Say that one more time. I couldn't hear you. Ashkenaz, and who was the other two?
Rifus and Togarmah.
Togarmah.
And who were the other two?
These are the sons of Gomer.
What were they? Yeah. Who were they known to be? Who were they known to be?
I don't know how they actually translate out. One speculation was that Gomer was Germany, Ashkenaz, but I always said that these were languages. Okay, Ritha, I don't know, Togarmah, but
right, different tongues. Yeah, different tongues. Yeah.
Yeah, Javon is always translated as being Greek or Greece.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
She's holding something up here. She's holding something.
The genealogy she's showing us.
Let me see if I can get you on the screen here. It's kind of fuzzy.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to focus. Maybe because I'm shaking.
No, it's the technology.
Yeah.
What's it say?
It's basically the lineage pulled out. It's actually on page 47 if you have an Art Scroll Chumash. It has a chart of all the 70 nations.
I'll post a link to it in the comments for people.
Yeah.
And I will switch over to it so we can see it. Japheth, Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rifus, and Togarmah. The goals. That's what those people were called eventually, the goals.
Goals or Gaul?
The Gauls, yeah. Yeah. The French, the northern lands.
Right.
Someone has a theory about the Britons being from the tribe of Dan. The Danish. Well, we have the Blue Danube, and there's so many names of rivers and areas that are attributed to the word Dan. Danish. Another speculation I've heard. I don't know how right it is, but
Well, I've heard things like that too. Brit, covenant-ish, man, covenant man, British, Irish, city, ish, man, city man. I've heard those.
It's called British Israelism, by the way, if people want to look it up.
British Israelism.
It's the opposite of Black Hebrew movement.
Oh, that's why they say they're going to build Jerusalem in England. Yeah, there's a song that they'd sing in until we build Jerusalem in England. It was one of the lines. That's a noble thought, I think, to build a city of paradise in your own backyard. It's a nice thought. So we get the birth of the Goy at the end of our Parsha. We get the birth of the nations. There were no Goy before this time. There's no such thing as Goyim. They didn't exist.
Right.
And that's how our Parsha ends, is with the creation of the Goyim. And why we would need a nation later on, wouldn't we? If there are going to be nations, then let there be one for God. The priests. The priests, right?
That's why he said, you shall be a nation, a kingdom of priests unto me. He's the king, they're the priests. It's not, the idea was not just the Cohen or the Cohen Levi. But you see, again, on that genealogy chart, if you keep looking in there, chapter 10 still, and it's verse 21, well, actually 22. Shem had other sons, Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Aram is where you get Aramaic.
Who had these sons?
Shem.
Shem.
Elam, his oldest, was one of the kings that was involved in the Abraham Lot skirmish.
So Aramaic, that's a sister language to Hebrew, isn't it? They call it a sister language. They look identical.
Well, they're related. But you remember all of these people were separated by their languages.
Ooh.
So each of these individuals had a language, and any of their children would have learned the language of their father.
I,
It would be like if you're looking at the descendants of Ham, you got Mizraim, which is Egypt. They obviously spoke Egyptian.
Hmm.
Those that lived in the land of Canaan spoke the language at that point. But any of those descendants of Canaan, whether it was Heth, or the Jebusites, or the Amorites, or the Girgashites, or the Hivites, they would have all spoke the language of their father, Canaan.
so Shem's line would have been the one that retained the language of Adam, the language of Noah, the Hebrew language.
I would say that's true. And then again, his descendants, Eber, again, they tie that or they link that in with Hebrew, Eber, Ever. And again, a lot of these cultures, languages, whatever you've heard over the time have been dead languages. Latin being a dead language. I mean, it's still around, but nobody uses it.
Mm-hmm.
The only place you can really find it anymore is on cigarette packages.
Yeah, somebody tried to say Hebrew was a dead language. I was like, no, it wasn't spoken outside of Hebrew establishments, but there were people publishing books, writing commentary all throughout the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, the New World. It didn't stop. It never died. I mean, yeah, with the advent of Zionism in the mid-18th century Common Era, but it never died. I'm of the opinion that Adam spoke proper Hebrew, whatever that was. You know, I think obviously we have different Jews from different areas of the world have different pronunciations. If you don't believe me, buy a Koran Tanakh, and you will see just how much you don't know how to say stuff. But I do think that that's the language that, and that's what the Hebrew, why the Hebrew language is the holy tongue, is because that's the language that God used to, or uses to utter in creation. I'm real big on that. It's not popular with everybody. I get that. And what do I know? I'm a goy. But hey, it makes a lot of sense. It makes complete and total sense, especially when you know how to call in the name of God. If you're a prophet, obviously you're going to understand some Hebrew in that era. You would be the language of Adam. Abraham would call God his friend. Where are you? He knew how to speak to God when he was 3. That's one special dude.
Yeah, but that's why, again, the first separation was by languages. And each of these languages is represented by individuals. And I was having a discussion earlier today about when you call somebody an Egyptian, we think in terms of the point, well, you were born in Egypt. Well, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, you can make that case, but it's that you're a descendant of Mitzrayim, of Egypt. You were a Canaanite because you were a descendant of Canaan. Or you get the point I'm making.
Mm-hmm.
a Jebusite because your forefather was Jebus. These were actual children and forefathers of a people. Just like later on, if you were called an Ishmaelite, you were a descendant of Ishmael. A Moabite is a descendant from the forefather of Moab. And as far as people tracing their lineages back that far anymore, I don't know that it's possible. I mean, so much of the world, nobody ever really kept a lot of physical records. And there was shuffling going on and wars and identities changed and people voluntarily changing their names because they moved from one country to another.
Mm-hmm. Or forced to convert.
And they didn't want their ancestral roots so obvious. It happened a lot. And then there were names given up because of marriage. That's why it's nearly impossible to trace somebody's roots back beyond a certain point. A lot of people.
Well, Baruch Hashem, we have Israel to kind of keep the center. Because I'm amazed at their records. Ancient records. 4 empires worth of records. You know? Not too shabby for a bunch of sheep herders back in the Bronze Age. Not too shabby at all. I never liked the idea of we were once cavemen. That's the opposite of what Torah teaches, isn't it? Man was in many ways, I know he's corrupt, and I'm trying to be positive here, but he was mighty in so many ways. Craftsmen, artists, you know, big giant men.
Farmers, shipbuilders.
The Torah teaches not evolution, but de-evolution. Not that we went up, we went down.
Yeah, we can go back.
To tie it into this parsha, Nimrod. It's said that Nimrod. You're such a Nimrod. You ever heard that insult?
For years I said it, not knowing exactly what it meant.
It comes from Nimrod, right? It says that Nimrod.
Bonehead.
It says that like some of the characteristics of Nimrod was that he was very hairy, and that he had a tail. That he actually, that he was sort of like some sort of missing link type of looking person, like Lucy or something. You know, like the fossil records of Lucy. Like it was like kind of like. That's what it says. It says that the people that him along with him and who built the Tower of Babel were their characteristics were very hairy, and they had tails of monkeys. Very interesting.
Modern Neanderthal.
Neanderthals, yeah, sure. Yeah.
In the movie, the Bible, which I do enjoy from time to time, the one they made back in the 60s, it was Nimrod who shot the arrow into the sky. I just thought that was interesting, you know, how paralleled that teaching. It's a good movie if you haven't seen it. A little simplistic.
What movie?
It's called The Bible, and it highlights the first 23 chapters of Genesis.
Nimrod shot the arrow
into the sky. It was he was aiming for, and just it was poetic. I could tell it was poetic. I didn't know what it was about, but yeah, he shot an arrow into the sky, just to the point where that's where he wanted to go. I hear the tower itself took 29 miles to get to the top. By the time it was halted, it would take you would have to walk around it. It would take 29 miles of walking to get to the top. Someone said it was 29 miles high. And it can't be. No, that makes no sense.
I've heard other stories, like if you took off walking in a direction, if you walked 3 days, you would still be in the shadow of the tower, depending on which direction the sun was coming, but 3 days walk, you'd still be in its shadow. And I thought Texans told tall tales.
Tall. He said tall.
Tower of Babel, still a better space program than North Korea.
Yeah, but you got to remember those 3 days journeys were in the desert too. So hey, they didn't get real far.
Is there any proof that the Tower of Babel wasn't in Texas? Because you know that everything's bigger and better in Texas.
That's true. It's true. Texan heart is pretty big. Yeah, I remember surprising a guy one time that the Tower of Babel is the beginning of Babylon. Like, wait, no, it can't be. I'm like, no, think about it. Why do you think they call it Babel? You know, it's the same kind of thing. A whole bunch of people from, you know, Babylon was very accommodating to the world. Everybody went to Babylon, of all different cultures, and it was like Egypt, you know, in many ways. Egypt was of course, famine helped Egypt become a metropolis, you know, but Babylon was very accommodating. They were actually quite accommodating to the Jewish people at first, you know, just like Babel. If you could hold a civilization together by different people from strange tongues, you know, that is, you know, I hate to say it, it's quite an accomplishment. All these great things, I mean, we're capable of doing from these early people that we learn about, our ancestors, if you will. They weren't fools. They were quite intelligent and could pull off great things.
Well, sure.
Sadly, they all end badly, but, you know.
Even today, with all of our technology, we couldn't begin to even build pyramids. Like, we couldn't build one. We couldn't duplicate it.
Who's up for a Haftorah reading?
Sure.
Me.
I thought so. The Haftorah, for those of you watching, if you've made it through this far in the video, congratulations and enjoy the Haftorah of the week. The Haftorah is a section of the Hebrew Bible not directly pertaining to that directly pertains to the portion of the Torah we read, but is not the Torah. This week we're in Isaiah 54. We're going to read through 55. Let's see what that is. Well, I'll just read and I'll stop when it stops me. I am in the Gutnick edition. I'll show you one more time. I'm going to begin exploring this on a weekly basis. It's the Gutnick edition. If you're in the Gutnick edition, Chumash, 1375 is the page number. Oh, that was a good year. Isn't there? Wouldn't it be interesting to find out? We're in Isaiah 54 here. We go. Jerusalem, during the exile times, you were like a barren woman who never gave birth, since you were a city devoted. But now, times of redemption, you can sing. O Jerusalem, open up your mouth and sing loudly. For you were a woman who never had labor pains. Now the inhabitants of Jerusalem, which presumably lay desolate, are more numerous than the inhabitants of the built-up cities of Edom. O Jerusalem, extend the area of your tent to include all your children. Stretch out the curtains that mark the edge of your dwellings, so that they may spread out far, and do not hold them back. Lengthen your ropes of your tents, expanding your borders, and strengthen your fasting pegs, so that your borders remain enlarged forever. For you will break through, spilling into the territory left. Your descendants will inherit nations, and they will multiply so much that they will inhabit desolate cities. Do not fear another exile after the redemption. Do not be ashamed to proudly display your greatness, for fear that you may be exiled again. For you will not be disgraced with another exile. You will forget the shame of the exile from your youth, and you will no longer remember the disgrace of your widowhood when you were a people without a king. Husband who made you great is the God of hosts. So who could possibly oppose you? Is it your redemption, none other than the Holy One of Israel, who will then be called God of the entire earth by all who read that again. Who will then be called God of the earth by all, so why be afraid? For God has called you to return to him like a husband who calls to his forsaken and ejected wife, like a man who was briefly disgusted by the wife of his youth, but soon forgives her, says your God. When I abandoned you, it was only for a short moment compared to the time when I will gather you, which will last forever due to my great mercy. Compared to the everlasting kindness with which I will have mercy upon you, I hid my face from you for just a moment, and I was only a little angry, says God, your Redeemer. This anger was for me like the waters of Noah. Just as I swore never to allow the waters of Noah to pass again over the earth, so too I swore not to be angry with you. For the mountains may move away and the hills may collapse in an earthquake, but my kindness will not leave you, nor will my covenant of peace collapse, says God, who is merciful to you. And we'll just go with the Ashkenazim, since we all seem to be of that. They're close to, anyway. We'll keep going for the Ashkenazim on this one. This is 54:11. O Jerusalem, you afflicted storm-tossed one, who has not been confronted. Who has not been comforted. I will lay your floor stones upon antimony instead of sand, and I will lay your foundations with sapphires. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
There's my word.
That's the okay. We'll come back to that. I will make your okay. I'm going to read it again. I will lay your floor stones upon antimony instead of sand, and lay your foundations with sapphires. I will make your window panes from emeralds, your gates from carbuncle stones, and the floor stones of all your borders will become desirable gems. For your children will be extremely wise, as if they were disciples of God, and your children will have much peace. For righteousness you will be fit for all this. You will distance yourself from fraudsters who have no fear of me at all, and from terror, for it will not come near you. Indeed, people will fear not one but me. Whoever attacks you will fall into your power. Behold, it was I who created the smith to fan coal fires and to make the tools of his trade, and it was I who was created the destroying enemy to destroy itself. Every weapon engineered against you will not succeed, and every tongue raised against you in judgment. This is the inheritance of God's servants. Reward from me, says God. O everyone who is thirsty for God's word, go to the prophet and drink his water. Even those who have no money, go and eat. Come and take wine and milk without paying, without charge, for the prophet's wisdom is free. Why do you pay money and invest your energies in non-Jewish wisdom without getting any real substance or bread? Why do you labor in something that cannot give satisfaction? Listen to me, learn Torah, and you will eat well and satisfy your souls with rich foods. Incline your ears and come to me to hear my words. Listen, and you will to live again in the revival of the dead. I will make an eternal covenant with you, as enduring as my loyalty to David. Indeed, I have made his enduring dynasty as a proof to the nations that my word always endures, and Mashiach, his descendant, will be a ruler and leader of the nations. Likewise, my promise to you will be fulfilled. Indeed, nations that you do not know will call upon you to serve you, and nations which never knew you will run to you to follow your orders. But they will not do this due to your own power, but for the sake of the God, your God, the Holy One of Israel, who dwells among you and who has glorified you. Thus ends the Parsha reading.
Yeah, just doesn't that speak to us?
That fits so perfect with Parsha Noah.
Doesn't it?
It fits perfectly with Gerim. It fits perfectly with conversion. Yeah, is that the word? I think the little L'chaim was kicking it. It fits. It fits perfectly. It's like such a. I almost want you. I almost want to say, read it again, James. It was good. It was very good.
Yeah, the last 55 especially. If that doesn't scream volumes from what we've been talking about for the last week and the rabbi fights and everything, that just covers it right there. It just says what Brad Katz was saying all along.
I see a parallel.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I see a parallel also between the Haftorah and a theme in Parshat Noah. We've been talking about the Messianic age, and it's what this last part's starting to talk about. When the flood came, the world became like an entire mikvah. A mikvah basically covered the entire earth. And I was learning earlier this week as I was koshering my kitchen, the reason Jews, they take their new dishes to be toiveled is to remove avodah zarah, which is idolatry. And so the mikvah has the power to take away idolatry. So when the waters covered the earth, it's almost like Hashem dunked the whole earth in a mikvah and removed the idolatry. And we're talking about the upcoming age where there's not going to be the world's not ever going to flood again because of the promise and the covenant. But everyone is we frequently quote, on that day, God's name will be one and the world will recognize him as one. So when the Messianic age comes, everyone will turn away from idolatry on their own.
Yes.
I like that.
And we've got it. We've made a step. I always talk about the she-tooth bit. If you ever see me, debating folks, is there really isn't a lot. There is still some, but as far as the general population of humanity, biblical idolatry is all but wiped out. It's not the same as it was. Even the Buddhist gets more, I think, Torah. You might, it's. I think that we're in. It's obvious at this point. Yeah, dropping the. I can't say it like this because the dead guy on a stick. That's all we have to do. That's we get rid of that and easy. It's so easy. Never mind. A different kind of mikvah. The knowledge of God will cover the earth like the waters.
Well, the language here is beautiful, but the unconsoled one, Jerusalem, right? your floor stones upon pearls. I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it says, for all your children will be students of Hashem. Everyone. All of your children are going to study the Torah. And abundant will be your children's peace. Establish yourself through righteousness. Distance yourself from oppression. For you need not fear it from panic and from panic. For it will not come near you. Everybody that used to be your enemy is now converted. One need not fear. Indeed, if he has nothing from me, whoever aggressively opposes you will fall because of you. That's saying that if anyone wants to challenge this truth, they won't any longer be able to challenge it.
I saw a parallel. Oh, go ahead, Ross. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to bring up a parallel I saw when it said your will lay your foundations with sapphires. What were the two tablets, the first tablets that Moshe was going to come down with? What were they made of? Sapphire. When the 70 elders were feasting at the foot of the mountain and gazing on the presence of the Lord, what was the presence over? A river of sapphire. Just thought I would pass that along.
Exactly.
I think this is a great place to end the live portion of the broadcast. What do y'all say? Ready for the dancing girls, ladies?
I want to say this one. I just want to say one last thing before we go. That's all right. A little about Torah. So there's a debate. We love it. We love the debate. Whether Noah was righteous in his generation is a positive statement by the Lord, or is it a negative statement, right? It goes back and forth. Was Noah righteous in his generation, meaning, well, look, I mean, his generation, they were rapists and murderers. If it's not that difficult to be a good guy, right? You know what I mean? Or does it mean in his generation, meaning if he was living in any generation, he would be righteous? If he was living in the time of Abraham or Moses or David, he would be like him, David, Moses. Right? I mean, if I let's say, for example, if I'm in a room full of just manure, right? And I have like a little, right? Just say manure, horse shit, right? And I have in my pocket a little bottle of, like, let's say, cow piss, right? And I smell it. I go, you know what? That's a good fragrance. You know, it doesn't smell too bad. Well, compared to what around you, of course, right? All right. So is that what the Lord is saying? The God gives 3 compliments to Noah. Noah was righteous in his generation. Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And the last what was the last compliment? Noah had grace. Noah was saved by grace or something, the end of the Parsha, right? I mean, he can't be that bad of a guy. I mean, the only person in the whole Torah to be called righteous, right? Adam wasn't called righteous, right? He was literally created by God himself. Moses was never called righteous, right? Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, they weren't called righteous. They're the patriarchs. The matriarchs, their wives, Sarah, Rachel, Leah, Rebecca, they weren't called righteous. So the question is this. If we're saying that Moshe and David are more righteous than Noah, right? Let's say, for example, Moses was a greater man than Noah, or King David was a greater man than Noah. It still doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything, right? At the end of the day, King David was a great king, and God gave him a mission to build a temple. No matter how good he was, he never fulfilled the mitzvah of building a temple. His son Solomon had to build a temple, right? No matter how good Moses was, his mitzvah was he had to save the people and bring them to the Holy Land. Well, no matter how good he was, he didn't bring them across the Jordan. Joshua did. Pistache, right? Isn't that what happened with the story? Moses didn't bring him in. Joshua did. King David didn't build the temple. Shlomo did. It's because
Noah didn't pray for man. His son did.
No, sure, right? If I have, no matter how good, Albert Einstein is, right? Like my rabbi likes to say, no matter how good Albert Einstein is, he still didn't have a mobile phone, right? He didn't have a cell phone, right? No, you know what I'm saying?
Awesome.
No, as brilliant he was, he still didn't have a cell phone, right? So you can't do more than what you're given, right? Noah couldn't do any more than what he could possibly do. If Noah was born, that's why it's a compliment. That's why God says it 3 times. God found favor in his eyes. God was right. Noah was righteous, meaning he wasn't a sinner, right? Sorry for those people who say the Yashkanites, whatever you want to call yourselves. Everyone's born with sin. You're a sinner. Sorry. It says Noah was righteous. He was without sin. It says that he found favor in the eyes of the Lord, right? Meaning that he was not an idolater. Meaning he kept mitzvot, right? So he was righteous. He found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So he kept the mitzvot, and then the grace. What does the grace mean? Come on, people. What does grace mean? It means.
I don't know.
It means that. Go ahead, Russ.
No, that was me, and I don't know.
So it means that he walked with the Lord, meaning he kept the statutes. So he kept the Torah and he did the statutes, meaning he did everything he was able to do as a person. And yes, he did go beyond the measure for measure what he was told to do. He did do more than he was supposed to do. It says that when people used to belittle Noah for building an ark in the middle of a come on, think about this, guys. He's building an ark in the middle of a desert, and he's saying to people there's going to be a flood. You know how it doesn't make any sense. There's not a water for hundreds of miles around. What are you talking about?
And on a mountain.
On a mountain. How's the water going to reach? Right? So if he was in the generation of, so it's a compliment. So what I'm trying to say is yes, Noah was able to do more what he said, and if he lived in the time of Moses, he would have been like Moses. If he lived in the time of David, he would have been like David. He was. It's a benefit to his name, not a detriment to his name. Okay, amen. That was what I had to say. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.
That was beautiful. That's perfect. Okay. On that note, we're tuning into the Nilvah Nexus Facebook group, Google Plus group, here on Google Plus, YouTube. You want to join in the conversation? On behalf of myself, Rosalie Ross, Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. No.